Something doomed us to this rotting form.
If he's a ghoul, he should be put down. I can't let a rabid dog suffer, or that he won't go feral eventually.
It doesn't happen all at once. First, it's a cough that won't go away. Then your skin starts peeling away and your hair starts to fall out. The people around you stop looking you in the eyes. They say it's radiation sickness, but deep down, you know it's something worse. Days turn into weeks, and the mirror stops matching the voice in your head. The slow change into a ghoul. Some stayed sane and kept living, even as everything around them turned to dust. Others lost their minds, turning into feral ghouls that attack anything that moves. The worst part is that nobody knows when that line gets crossed. One day you're talking, thinking, remembering. The next, you're gone, but your body keeps going. That's the real horror. It's the thought of staying conscious long enough to watch your friends forget you, to feel your mind start slipping. Some try to fight it, and some pretend nothing's wrong. Others just wait for the day that it'll happen. Across the wasteland, there are stories of people who lived through that change, and what became of them after. A magician who still performs for an audience that no longer exists. Prisoners who outlasted their captors but never escaped their cell. And a traitor who lost his mind in the dark. If you guys enjoy Fallout, then you're definitely in the right place. We have a bunch on the channel and a lot more to come. If you want to stay in the loop with what's going on with the channel behind the scenes, you can follow me on Twitter or X with the link in the description. So stick around guys and consider subbing. Thanks for watching and enjoy the vid. When people talk about ghouls in Fallout, they usually think of the mindless ones that charge at you. But Oswald the Outrageous is different. He's one of the oldest living ones, and his story is one of the most tragic in the series. Long before the bombs fell, a man named Oswald Oppenheimer worked as a magician at Nuka World. On stage, he called himself Oswald the Outrageous, and spent his days performing tricks in the park's kitty kingdom. His girlfriend, Rachel Watkins, played Princess Cherry in the King Cola show. But she wasn't just an actress. She had a degree in organic chemistry and dreamed of joining the Beverageers, the elite science team behind Nuka-Cola. The two were happy working together, surrounded by other entertainers who had become close friends. They thought that the park would be their future. Then, October 23rd, 2077 came. When the bombs dropped, chaos spread everywhere. The Nuka World staff tried to escape, but the employees from the children's section took shelter in the tunnels below. They thought it would be temporary, just until the fighting outside had stopped. But the radiation storms that followed the war were stronger than anything they imagined. Fallout swept into the valley and flooded the grounds, coating everything in a layer of glowing dust. No amount of shielding helped. People began to cough, their skin cracked, and their hair fell out. Oswald and his partner watched their coworkers die one by one. Some screamed as they changed. Their eyes clouded and their minds faded until there were nothing but feral ghouls. Rachel tried to save them. She worked without rest, mixing chemicals, testing formulas, and keeping notes. She called the condition the affliction, a sickness that turned people into something less than human. But every attempt failed. She was trained in chemistry, not medicine, and there wasn't much left to work with. The magician stayed by her side, using tricks to cheer her up and pretending that everything would be fine. When the radiation storms passed, only a few still thought clearly. Rachel, her partner, and a handful of ghouls who still had their minds. The rest were feral and locked inside the park's buildings. Over the next decades, the magician began to change more than the others. His skin glowed bright green, and he found that he could heal other ghouls by releasing radiation. When one of the ferals died near him, he could bring it back. He thought it was real magic, his final act as a performer. Rachel saw it as a mutation. She kept researching, hoping it might lead to a cure, but nothing worked. Each time another of their coworkers lost their mind, they called it one more afflicted. Then came the day she couldn't take it anymore. The place had become a graveyard filled with people who used to be her friends. She decided to leave and he let her go, believing she'd return once she found a cure. She promised she'd come back. He stayed behind, guarding the grounds, keeping the others safe, and waiting for her return. He kept the amusement park running in his own way, speaking through the announcement system and warning raiders and travelers to stay out. To the outsiders, he looked like a glowing monster living inside an old attraction. The mist that covered the area wasn't just leftover radiation. It was something he actually kept running to scare away intruders. He thought it would protect the feral ghouls still roaming there. He talked to them like they were alive, called them performers, and acted as if the show had never ended. To him, they were just sick, and he was waiting for Rachel to come back and save them all. But her journey didn't go far. She reached Bradburn, the town just outside Nuka World. But by then, she had started to change. Her hands trembled and her thoughts were slipping. Every settlement she visited told her the same thing. There was no cure. Ghouls just eventually lose their minds. She recorded her final message to the magician. She said she had learned the truth and couldn't bear to hurt anyone when she turned. She said she loved him and that she was sorry. Then she ended her life before she became feral. Back inside the park, he never heard that message. He kept performing for 200 years, speaking to the empty attractions and waiting for her. Raiders and travelers who came too close heard his voice over the loudspeakers. He was calling them guests and mocking them as if they were part of the show. People said the park was cursed. Some even swore they saw a glowing figure appear and vanish in clouds of smoke, surrounded by laughing ghouls. When the sole survivor finally reaches the area, they still find him clinging on to that hope. He still believes Rachel will come back. He calls the feral ghouls his cast, his performers, and anyone who threatens them becomes part of his act. When he finally hears Rachel's holotape, he understands the truth. She's gone and the cure never existed. He's been holding on to something that ended long ago. His story is tragic. It's about love that survived after everything else died. The park is his stage and his prison. The laughter isn't real, and the people he protects are gone in every way that matters. But he keeps the performance going, because it's the only piece of his old life he still has. Private Kyle Edwards once thought he'd finish his service and go home. He was just another NCR soldier at Camp Searchlight, standing guard and following orders. Then the Legion sabotaged the base. In the middle of the night, their agents broke into the fire station and opened containers filled with radioactive waste. Kyle remembers a flash and then pain spreading through his body. When he woke up, his skin looked burned and his breath tasted like metal. He saw a squad lying around him. Some were gone, and the others were standing, but their eyes were vacant and their movements broken. They had turned into feral ghouls. He was still himself, but barely. His voice was rough, his skin was cracked, and his hands shook. The infection didn't kill him, but it erased the life he knew. For a while, he hid inside one of the homes in Searchlight. The town was empty except for corpses and the wind moving through the ruins. Kyle dragged furniture against the doors and covered the windows with boards. Outside, rad scorpions crawled through the dust and feral ghouls wandered the streets. Inside, it was quiet. Days turned into weeks. The silence stretched longer every day until it started to feel endless. He stayed inside because there was nowhere else to go. First Sergeant Astor was still out there, patrolling what was left of the base. Astor said that even thinking ghouls deserved to die, that it was the only way to stop their pain before they went feral. Kyle couldn't accept that. When the courier meets him, he says, "I may be suffering, but I still want to live." He knows what he's become, but he refuses to give up. Word might reach him about a place called Ranger Station Echo. It was said to be run by ghouls, still serving the NCR. That idea gave him something to believe in. If he could reach it, maybe he wouldn't have to hide anymore. Maybe there were others like him who wouldn't see him as a monster. It was a small chance, but it was all he had left. Kyle is holed up in that house surrounded by dust and broken furniture. He's holding one of the NCR dog tags that Astor has been collecting from the dead. He admits he's too scared to leave because the town is crawling with rad scorpions, and he asks the courier to deal with them so he can finally go. You can lie and say the scorpions are gone, or clear them out for real. Whatever happens next depends on that choice. If he's told it's safe when it isn't, he leaves and doesn't survive. If the path is clear, he might finally reach Ranger Station Echo. We won't know what actually became of him. Some might think he made it, others believe the desert claimed him before he got far. Kyle Edwards isn't a villain or a hero. He's a soldier who lived through something no one else should have. The radiation didn't kill him, it just left him as a ghoul. He's not alive, but he isn't gone either. And he believes that this might just be a punishment you can't escape. And maybe he's right. If you explore Big MT and Old World Blues, you'll find a place that's quiet in a way that doesn't feel natural. It's called Little Yangsha, and what's left there isn't just another camp full of feral ghouls. It's a prison that never really closed. Before the Great War, the US military used it to hold captured Chinese citizens and soldiers. 3 trainloads of them were brought in, most not even speaking English. The detainees were kept behind fences lined with sensors and watched by guards who worked around the clock. The think tank scientists at Big MT wanted subjects, and the captives were easy to take. Every night, people disappeared from their barracks and never returned. When some tried to fight back or alert the guards, punishment came in the form of solitary confinement. Escapes became common because there was too many inmates to contain, so the camp's commandant requested explosive collars. Once those devices arrived, escape meant death. Each one was linked to the perimeter fence and would detonate the moment someone stepped too far outside. From then on, the inmates were trapped, living in fear and waiting for the next round of medical studies. Then the bombs fell. The sky turned orange and the mountain shook as Big MT was struck. Every soldier, every scientist, every captive who survived the blasts was sealed inside. The guards were killed or fled, and the think tank withdrew into their labs, abandoning the site completely. Nobody came for the people in Little Yangsha. Radiation swept through the valley and the inmates began to change. Their skin peeled off, their hair fell out, and their minds splintered. Over time, they became ghouls. Some went feral, others stayed aware for years before breaking. A few remain even 2 centuries later, the Yangsha camp survivors. 2 of those survivors are remembered only by their numbers, 27 and 34. Before the war, they were just prisoners in matching gray jumpsuits, tracked by the digits stitched across their backs. Once the collars were fitted, names stopped mattering. To the guards, these people were nothing more than test material. After the war, 27 and 34 somehow managed to endure longer than almost anyone else. Their explosives still functioned, but they found a way to beat the system. They learned to move through weak spots in the fence and avoid the sound trigger that would set off their devices. It took years of observation and trial, but eventually they found freedom, just not that far from the place that broke them. By 2281, both were still alive, still wearing their jumpsuits and collars. Whatever bond they shared kept them close. It could be that they didn't know where else to go. Maybe the world outside the fence didn't make sense anymore. After spending centuries in that valley, nothing was left except the habits that kept them alive. When you come across them, the pair doesn't speak or run away. Their movements are erratic and violent, caught between instinct and memory. Most of the ghouls left inside the compound can't speak. Some wander too close to the gates and explode when their collars activate. Their bodies are piled up near the fences. Even after 200 years, that system still functions. Inside the shacks are bones, beds, and half-rotted uniforms. The inmates who didn't die immediately spent years starving before the radiation finished them off. Those who turned feral roamed the ruins without a sound, dressed in those same uniforms. Number 27 and number 34 are the only ones who escaped the fence for good. But they never left the mountain. They lived just outside it, partly free but still confined. Their story ties directly into the greater horror of Big MT. The scientists saw themselves as visionaries pushing the limits of human progress. But what they left behind were people stripped of identity and locked inside an experiment that would unfortunately never end. The captives of Little Yangsha were some of the worst victims to be found in the entire series. Treated terribly in a prison camp and then turned into ghouls and left to rot. So when you pass by that crater and see 2 glowing figures in old jumpsuits, remember what they are. Number 27 and number 34 aren't just ghouls. They're some of the last human beings who were erased, used, and abandoned by science. They survived the Great War only to spend centuries trapped. Luckily, the courier shows up and most likely sets them free, so to speak. But who knows just how long they had to suffer. Down in the sewers beneath the capital wasteland, there's a spot down there that almost nobody remembers. The tunnels twist for miles, damp and empty, until you find a small service room that someone turned into a home. The name scratched on the wall is Gallo. Before the war, nobody knows who Gallo was. After the bombs, he became one of the ghouls that crawled underground when the world outside started burning. The county sewer main line became his shelter, and over time, it became his prison. The air is thick with gas and decay. Whatever mind Gallo once had broke somewhere along the way. 200 years alone will do that. Radiation kept his body from dying, but it couldn't save his mind. It looks like he recently celebrated his birthday. He put on a party hat and set out chairs for guests that don't exist. His only company were 2 garden gnomes. In his fridge are feral ghouls, hacked apart and stored next to half-eaten meals. Gallo eats them alone, talking as if his guests are still alive. Inside the room, a small wire pen sits in the corner filled with rad roaches. Gallo keeps them as pets, the only living things that never try to leave, or at least I'm assuming that's what he thinks. Outside his door, he's rigged traps to keep intruders out, makeshift explosives and wires stretched across the passage. Anyone who wanders too close will never make it to his door. It's clear he used to be more than this. He wears a trader's jacket, the kind scavengers once used when they traveled between settlements. Back then, Gallo might have talked to people once, maybe even had a life before the sewers. But now, anyone who steps into his home is an enemy. He attacks on sight, screaming in words that barely make any sense. I also have to wonder if this guy had OCD or something similar when he was human, and maybe it even transcends his ghoul mind. Every object is in its place, every bottle lined up, every corpse stored neatly away. Down there, the seclusion, the radiation, and the years have turned him into something different from the ferals that roam the tunnels. They've lost their minds. Gallo lost his, but not in the feral sense. At least not yet. He proves that ghouls don't always go feral because of hunger or rage. Sometimes it's just the loneliness that finishes the job. Gallo has kept himself alive for centuries by pretending that he isn't alone, that his gnomes are guests, and that his fridge is full of food, and that the party never ended. But in the end, it's still just him talking to no one. In the back of the Museum of History, there's a room that doesn't fit in with the rest. It's sealed behind glass, and it seems different from the rest of the city. This place is the Chop Shop, Dr. Barrow's clinic, a place where ghouls come to be stitched up, studied, and treated. Most people think it's just a hospital, but behind one locked door, it seems like something closer to a laboratory. Behind glass and 2 containment cells is Ethel and Meat. They're not regular ghouls anymore. Both are glowing ones, their skin melted and glowing from radiation that's kept them alive long after they should have died. The pair used to live in Underworld, part of the same community that they're now shut away from. Exposure to too much radiation took their minds. They went feral and then started to glow, and now they're just test subjects. Dr. Barrows keeps them contained for research. He calls it science, a way to study ghoulification and maybe one day slow or reverse it. He watches them from behind the glass, recording how they react and move. Nurse Graves says not everyone agrees with what he's doing. Some ghouls think there's nothing to fix, and that they're meant to live the way they are. But Barrows keeps working anyway. He's sure there's something inside the process that explains why some ghouls stay sane while others lose control. Ethel and Me are his best examples. They're what he points to when he talks about how far ghoulification can go. They can't leave, and no one is supposed to go in. Most people in the underworld don't talk about them. To them, the Chop Shop is a clinic, not a holding cell for old neighbors who lost themselves. Barrows doesn't see monsters when he looks at them. He sees what he thinks might happen to him one day, and that's why he won't stop. He calls himself the foremost authority on ghoulification, but he never sounds proud when he says it. Ethel and Me are caught in the middle. They're not human anymore, but they're not gone either. Both stand there lit by a dull green glow while the underworld keeps moving outside their cell. Most travelers never notice them, but if you stop for a second, you can tell they used to be part of this place. Faces behind glass, eyes dim, and bodies that haven't stopped moving. It seems like a sad conclusion to their lives. Maybe some very small piece of them is still left in there, and now they're trapped like a zoo animal. Nowhere to go and nothing to do. Just endless time.
That's almost like that Chop Shop
Before the
place
bomb
that was in the series, the TV show that she got taken to, sold to. Yeah, it's kind of like that place. I wonder if that inspired it.
Sanctuary Hills looked like any quiet suburb. The streets had small homes with fences, and neighbors waved as you passed by. You might even meet some of them before the bomb. The Parkers, the Donahues, and Miss Rosa with her son Chris. When the alarms went off, everyone runs towards the vault, desperate for safety. Some make it inside, but most didn't. The ones outside begged to be let through the gate. Soldiers and Vault-Tec guards held them back. You can hear them shouting in the opening scene. Mr. Parker, Mrs. Donahue, and Miss Rosa all trying to reason with the guards before the blast. Rosa even calls out that she has a child, but none of them make it through the checkpoint. When the bombs fall, the screen fades, but that's not the end of their story. Radiation from the blast didn't kill everyone instantly. In Fallout 4's random encounter system, a traveling group of named ferals can spawn with pre-war names from Sanctuary Hills. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, Mr. and Mrs. Donahue, Miss Rosa, and Chris Rosa. And they never appear in fixed locations. They show up as a wandering encounter, and it can repeat over and over again. And those names obviously match your old neighbors from 2077. These feral ghouls are tied to Sanctuary Hills, and not every neighbor's full story is written out, but the connection is clear. Those names survived the blast as something else. When you return to Sanctuary Hills after leaving Vault 111, Codsworth still remembers them. He mentions the neighbors by name, not knowing that they're gone. The sole survivor never gets direct confirmation that the ferals in the Commonwealth are the same people, but the names in the random encounter all tied together. But how or why do they keep coming back even after you might encounter them and kill them? There's a lot of theories out there. Maybe it's just a gameplay mechanic, or maybe there really is a lore reason. Some people think that the sole survivor is just seeing random ghouls, and in their minds believing it was their neighbors. Maybe the sole survivor has trauma that they can't escape. Maybe these really are just your neighbors and the sole survivor recognizes them. Whatever the reason, they are ghouls now. They were left out of the vault to rot and became monsters. People that the sole survivor knew well, maybe even been friends with. There are a lot more ghoul horror stories out there in Fallout, so if you want me to cover some more in a future vid, just let me know. Maybe drop some of your favorites in the comments and I'll include them in the next. If you guys want, you can follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, with the link in the description. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. And remember, enjoyed time is never wasted time, and I'll see you in the next.